We're so excited about the day today, and so glad that you've taken time out of your schedule to be here. And as things go, we have to adjust with the schedule, and so there were a few minutes here to set up that it took us, and we apologize for that, but we're glad that you're all here. There is an interest by Sister Rosa that you are in a place where you can see the screen. So if you cannot read what's on the screen, then you may want to move to an area that you can. I know this section over here that's open, might give you a better viewing opportunity than very much in the back on this side. So I'll leave that up to you. On behalf of Sadlier Publishing, we're grateful to have the opportunity to be here today and to sponsor Sister Rosa Monique Pena as your keynote speaker. We're grateful for the partnership that we have with the diocese and the parish, the deanery, and each of your parishes. So thank you for the patronage over the years. And Sister Rosa Monique Pena comes to us with many years in catechesis, originally from the Dominican Republic. Has lived in the States about 40 years, I believe. As a Dominican sister, 50 years. Yes. She resides in Miami and is involved in many areas and has been over the years at many levels and areas of catechetics. So she brings with her today her expertise to share with us. So without further ado, I ask that you give a warm Southern welcome to Sister Rosa Monique Pena.
Waiting for, we are on. Miracles. Thank you very much. As I stand here, I would like, please, for all of us to remember the people in Haiti and Cuba as they are receiving now the blast of the Hurricane Isaac. So, in a little prayer that I make it home this evening, probably will fly home or fly back. You never know. Well, this is wonderful. I just love the countryside here in Georgia. And as the advertisements go, I was looking around, where are the peaches? Now you can see what is important in my mind. So may the time that we have together, a few minutes this morning, be blessed with a plenty of fruits for ourselves as catechists. On the 11th of October, next month, we begin what Pope Benedict XVI called the Year of Faith. And it was precisely on that day, October the 11th, 50 years ago, that Pope John the 23rd opened the Second Vatican Council. So when Pope Benedict wanted to start the Year of Faith on October the 11th, he was actually begin the celebration of the 50th year of Vatican II. His predecessor, John Paul II, anticipating the celebration of such an important event, invited the entire ecclesial community, all of us, to consider the need for a new evangelization effort. Following this invitation, the United States Catholic Conference dedicated this catechetical year to us catechists with the title Catechists and Teachers as Agents of the New Evangelization. So here are some thoughts we could explore together. First of all, what is the meaning of the word agent? Also, evangelization through secular and religious lenses. implications about this new evangelization, and all of us catechists as agents. Well, let us begin with the first one. When we talk about the word agents, we use it very frequently. It refers to a person in charge of administering some official business. Or better still, a person whose actions produce specific results. So when we say that catechists and teachers are agents, we are implying then that their actions produce results. Well, let's see it. The second important word in this conversation is evangelization. That is the proclamation and witnessing of Christ's gospel. Fine. However, why don't we begin someplace else to understand that word? I say this because many times when we think of evangelization, which is practically a new word in our Catholic parlance, we think of preachers standing in a corner in a street evangelizing. Isn't that what you think sometimes? But for us, we have a different connotation for that, and especially with this new evangelization. Okay, so how many of you are the proud owner of a computer? Are you bombarded with information in an exponential speed and amount as I am? Every day I get all kinds of things destined to threaten to eat up my life in few hours. I get in the morning and I sit down and I turn on my computer and I said, "Oh Lord, where do I begin cleaning?" I get jokes, gossip, pictures, health tips, political advertisements, now they are many, videos, and inspirational thoughts. Some of my friends think that I need them all. I wonder what they are trying to tell me. And that's among some things. I delete most of them for obvious reasons. However, every so often, an inspiring quote would grab my attention just before I touch the delete button. Let me see. What is this all about? Do you have that experience? Okay. And this is the one I got. Someone asked Mahatma Gandhi, which are the factors that can destroy a human being? Which are the factors that can destroy a human being? And his response was politics without principles, pleasure without commitment, wealth without work, wisdom without character, business without morals, science without humanity, prayer without charity. He said that life is like a mirror. If I smile, the mirror returns the smile. The same attitude I have towards life is what life will have towards me. He who wishes to be loved must love first. Does that remind you of any quote in the Gospels? Now, what would happen if we replace the word without with the word with in Gandhi's remarks? Here we have a precise, concise, and clear definition of evangelization. Take a look at this again. Politics with principles. Just a thought. That would be quite an evangelization without even talking about religion. What about pleasure with commitment? Okay. That again says miles. Wealth with work. Or wisdom with character. That what we say we are and what we do is the same. What about this one? Business with morals. We would not be in the shape we are now, are we? Science with humanity. Just last night I was watching the news, and they are very concerned about the chimpanzees. They are using them in a cruel manner for studies in science that they don't need to use these lovely animals. Prayer with charity. Gandhi, by the way, to have this would be wonderful to just make a copy of it, laminate it, and put it in your kid's bathroom or yours, in ours, okay, and in the bathroom. But let's go back to Gandhi. Gandhi was a fervent disciple of Jesus. He knew the New Testament practically by memory. In fact, it was the basis for many of his thoughts, especially his nonviolent approach to politics. We could easily take some of Gandhi's lines in this quote and align them with a similar one from the New Testament. I bet we can we? Some of these thoughts that will remind us of something in the New Testament that probably Jesus said or the disciples did. What about if we try to use a little bit of memory? Let's see if that coffee worked this morning. Okay, now I'm going to give you about 2 or 3 minutes. Think about it and just turn to the person next to you. Don't leave nobody behind. And just talk or listen. What piece of scripture, what incident, what parable reminds you or has a parallel thought with one of these? It's your turn now. I hope you have one in mind. I'm going to come down. I'm going to come down to hear you. If anybody has one that you remember, please raise your hand. I'm coming down. Okay, here we have. Yes.
Number one.
Pop. Use the other one. Use the other one too. Okie finoki. Okay. Which one is on? This one. Okay.
Okay. I was thinking of the first one, politics.
Yes. Politics without principles.
I was thinking of Pontius Pilate
Okay.
and Jesus,
Okay.
and how he told, how the group was saying, that they wanted him, even though he had said that Jesus had done nothing.
Nothing.
But he
buckled.
he buckled.
Aha. Okay. Very good. Anybody else? Yes.
Well, I was thinking that for number 3 and number 5, the owner of the vineyard who went out to collect his tribute from the people who worked his fields, and they in turn killed his servants and killed his sons when he sent them and took over the vineyards for themselves, and they hadn't done anything.
That's right.
So I thought that fit in there.
It does. Very good. Anybody else? Yes. Okay. Here we go. Hi, Cole.
For number 5, I was thinking of Jesus' rage in the temple when people were conducting business in the house of the Lord, and Jesus turned over the tables.
Okay, very well. Anybody else? Yes. Pass the mic. Number 4. Pass the mic, please.
Wisdom without character would be Solomon. He had all the wisdom in the world, but then he had all his women that he, all his wives and everything, and then he, built this huge temple, and he got a little carried away, and he didn't really use his wisdom the way he should have.
Okay. Yes. It reminds me too, the one with wisdom without character. You remember Nicodemus, the bright lawyer, and how he came, at one time of the day he came to see Jesus. Nighttime, hiding. I don't want him to see me. But then he gave himself away. And Jesus had to say, Nicodemus, come on. Think. What are you trying to do? Anybody else? One more. Sir, Thomas.
Without charity is the Pharisees.
That's right.
Telling everybody what they had to do, but the last thing they would do it themselves.
Absolutely. We have a beautiful example of that in Matthew 23. If we ever, I'm getting the thumbs up. If we ever wanted to know why Jesus was killed, Matthew 26 will give you the answer. Very good. I'm very pleased. And even this one, science without humanity. You remember the one time that he was going to preach in the synagogue, and there was a person there, a man there, that had a problem with a paralyzed hand, a right hand, in fact, they said. And so the Pharisees and the religious people were watching. Let's see what he does, if he's going to cure on the Sabbath. And then Jesus, knowing their thoughts, said to the men, come up here. And showed them the man, and he said, what do you think that we should do on the Sabbath? Should we, he said, do we preserve life or destroy it? And he put the question to them, what would you do? Would you destroy life or preserve it? They didn't answer, of course. And he went ahead and he cured the person. Gandhi's remarks makes us aware of the prevalent duality still present in our days. Some of us may even say that this duality is so widespread that we hardly notice it. There seems to be some disconnect between our values and our behavior. Well, it reminds me of two cute anecdotes. A wife invited some people to dinner. At the table, she turned to her 6-year-old daughter and said, "Honey, would you like to say the blessing?" "I wouldn't know what to say, Mommy," the girl said. "Just say what you hear your mommy say." So the daughter bowed down her head and said, "Lord, why on earth did I invite all these people to dinner?" Watch it, huh? The next one. At the beginning of a children's sermon, one girl came up to the altar wearing a beautiful dress. As the children were sitting down around the pastor, he leaned over and said to the girl, "That is a pretty dress." Very close to the mic. "Is it your Easter dress?" The girl replied almost right into the mic and said, "Yes. And my mom said it is a to iron." In the documents of the Second Vatican Council, in the first paragraph of the dogmatic constitution on the Church, known as Lumen Gentium, we find this about the essence of evangelization as it pertains to the entire Church. It says, "The Church in Christ is in the nature of sacrament, a sign and instrument of communion with God and unity with one another." Let me repeat that quote because it is one of the most famous and most fundamental thoughts that came out of Vatican II. The Church in Christ is in the nature of a sacrament, a sign and an instrument of communion with God and unity with one another. And it continues saying, this is her nature and mission. This is the nature of the Church and the mission of the Church, to be that sign and instrument. I need not to remind you that we are the Church. We are signs and instruments of unity with God and unity with all creation, human and not human alike. We are signs and instruments if we know it or not, if we choose it or not. The mere fact that we say we are Catholics, that we are people of faith, everything we do is a sign or an instrument of something. Everything we do reflects, one way or another, what may be in our heart. The two little girls, in an innocent way, pointed to the difficulty of the statement, pointed to the duality that is in us. We reflect and transmit to others what is in our heart. Isn't this what Gandhi said in his remarks? Whatever we project is what we promote. The implication is sobering. As agents of the gospel, we need to bring into line both our beliefs and our actions to avoid giving contrary messages to others, especially to our students. Let us dwell for a minute about this alignment of our beliefs and actions. I actually see it as a two-lane road. One coming toward me and another one going away from me. The road coming my way is the one I need to take to travel inside myself to the place where my beliefs and values reside, where I find the God with whom I talk, with whom I wrestle, with whom I feel at home. The strength of that relationship, or lack of, will find itself going out of me toward others. As simple as that. When my relationship with God is positive and fresh and strong and well anchored, it stands to reason that that is what I'll project. The opposite has its own outcome, we know. This reminds me of St. Paul, the one St. Matthew, in his gospel said, "The mouth speaks what the heart is full of." Here again, the need to take frequent trips into ourselves to find out what's there. We don't want to run the risk, as I said, of assuming a strong spirituality when in reality we may be having serious issues with which we have not dealt. Let me give you another anecdote, this from my own life. As a young woman thinking of becoming a sister, thank you, Steve, you said 50 years ago, I had this delusional idea that once I became a nun, everybody would listen to me as they listen to a saint. My first assignment as a professed religious was to a parish school in Miami, where parents had no intention of giving hospitality to a foreign teacher, even if she had, as I did, a habit down to the floor. The welcoming remarks I got was, "We didn't ask for one of you to come." I'm not kidding. Another word was like this. We want an American sister to teach our children. There were many in the school, many of our own sisters. But they wanted another North American to teach the children. Well, that really burst my bubble, didn't it? If my outer appearance did not do the trick, I needed to concentrate on something else. I asked myself, if they could ever get to know me, would they change their minds? But what would that be? What had I to offer besides a holy card look? My heart went spinning, and I found myself in chapel trying to understand who I was. What did I value? What were my motives, again, for having chosen this way of life? And what was I ready to sacrifice for this ideal? Most importantly, whom did I want to preach? I questioned if I had the inner peace and convictions that took to present myself as a sign and instrument of the divine love. It would be good to note and to confess that I go through these inner struggles very frequently. This is a forever process, by the way, that beckons all of us constantly. It never stops. When the process stops, the barnacles around our hearts begin to grow, and something inside us hardens. Let us go over this idea of being signs and instruments again. As people of God, that is, as church, it is in our nature and mission to reflect a healthy spirituality in order to be agents of God's love. Let me show you a visual of that definition or that remark from Lumen Gentium. We are signs and we are instruments. It's interesting, both. But signs and instruments of what? Signs of unity. Instruments of unity. Okay. If we are signs of unity, notice that the first is toward ourselves, of unity with God, ourselves. And then unity with others. We need to show it. Right now, we are a sign of unity with God and one another. The mere presence that our presence in this church today. We are signs. Whoever would come through those doors that does not understand who we are, our mere presence ought to show that. But we don't stop there, says Lumen Gentium. We are also instruments. Instruments of what? Unity, again. Unity with God and with others. This is awesome and very hard, because to be signs is to be seen or known as a person who transmits a wholesome dimension of God. And I need to emphasize the idea, a wholesome dimension of God. That an instrument to be trusted as persons who labor to have others see that there is room in the heart of God for them. The agent of unity reaches out to others first with his or her soul, and then with his or her ministry. Our ministry, any ministry in itself, does not guarantee a desirable outcome. There are many churches, school, catechesis, lay apostolates, doing all sorts of things, you know, and people still leaving the faith. It is said that there are more Catholics by name than by conviction. For many, the God of fear, damnation, exclusion, and finger-pointing has left them empty. Faith is not a word they use in a religious sense. Sacraments, church, prayer, saints, holy objects are words not in their vocabulary. There is I don't care about their religious attitude or religion. The other day, I was in an airport in Dominican Republic waiting for the boarding call. I lingered around the bookstore. You know how we do, waiting and waiting. We just go and see the same old thing. Gums here, books there. Well, I was around when I heard two women talking in a rather nasty way about a priest whose book was on the shelf. I could not help meander over and asking them if they knew him. No, said one. The other had read about him and already judged him evil. The conversation took an interesting path. At one point, I asked them if they were Catholics, and they, by birth, both of them said, religion, said one, is for the birds. Look at them, and here, meaning us, priests, lay, and religious in church work. All the men are pedophiles, and the nuns and the holier-than-thou people are indoctrinated slaves. Whoa. One said, I have never had a good experience in the church. It has never done a thing for me anyway. Well, after a few more interesting exchanges, during which I identify myself, we were called to board. I could see their eyes following me every so often, like I would have loved hearing what they were saying. Oh, she's one of them, or have you ever seen one of those? It was at that moment that I understood more precisely John Paul II's desire for a new evangelization. This evangelization is not so much about preaching more or being louder in the marketplace or stubborn about a particular idea or brand of religion. It is about us, the believers, helping one another take the inner path to our heart in search again for the loving God who is tirelessly calling us to a deeper relationship. It is about that hard road into our soul to recover the nature and dignity with which we were endowed by the grace of God, so as to become agents of unity and meaning and hope. Now, this is quite a burden, especially for us, ministers of the Word, through catechesis. I often said to the catechists in Miami when I was Archdiocesan Director of Religious Ed, that it doesn't matter if you have the best catechetical textbooks if we lack spirit and conviction. The first lesson and all the rest depend on us as persons. Take a look at Jesus' methodology. He spoke with people. He touched people. He laughed and wept with them. He went to their funerals and weddings and lots of dinner parties. It is this Jesus now who is counting on us to do the same, to be his voice and his hands, like Teresa of Avila says. But let me wrap it up here with a story that perhaps can take all what we have said or we have been thinking about this morning about being agents, being signs and instruments of evangelization. Once, there was a farmer who bought 40 acres of very poor land full of rocks and weeds. After several years of work, he had a very fine farm. "Mighty nice farm you have, Joe," a neighbor said one day. "Yep," Joe replied. "God's been mighty good to you," the neighbor continued. Joe said nothing for a long time. Finally, he said, "Yep, I reckon so. But God wasn't doing too good until I got here." I think we should go out there and be good farmers. Thank you very much.